Shalom, dear Havorim. Welcome to this week's A Taste of Torah. My name is Devorah Kalik, and I'm with Bless Israel Network, and I'm your hostess for this newer addition to Bless Israel Network's videos. And what we're trying to do is to help the disciples of Yeshua, of Jesus, to learn about the beauty of Torah, of the Torah of Moses, the 5 books of Moses, and to learn how to study it, both for its instruction and its prophetic value. And so this week we have a double portion called Mattot, meaning tribes, and Massei, meaning journeys. And we're just going to focus on one main point in both of these Torah portions. If you have a Hebrew or a Jewish Bible, please get it, and we're in Numbers chapter 30, verse 2. If you have a typical English Bible, it's probably going to be, we're starting in Numbers 30, verse 1. And it says there, I'll read it to you, Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes of the children of Israel, saying, "This is the thing that Hashem has commanded." This is the only place in the Torah of Moses where this introductory formula is used. Usually it says, something like Moshe spoke to the children of Israel or something like that. And what Rashi says, though, is that this was his regular formula. He always did this. If you go to, actually, I'm going to go to an online source that gives us Rashi's commentary. If you ever want to look there, it's on Chabad.org, and it has the entire Tanakh, the entire Old Testament, and you can show or hide Rashi's commentary. And what he says is, how do we know that Moses, did so with other statements? In other words, how do we know he always used this formula to speak first to the tribes, the heads of the tribes of Israel? And then he writes, for it says, Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the princes of the community returned to him, and Moses would speak to them afterwards, to all the children of Israel as they drew near. And you can see that example in Exodus 34, verses 31 and 32. Thus, we can be certain that every time Moses passed on Hashem's or God's commandments, he delivered them first to the heads of the tribes of the sons of Israel, and only later to the rest of the people. What's interesting is that Daniel Lancaster, in his commentary on Parashat Mattot, Torah portion, tribes, Mattot, in First Fruits of Zion's Torah Club commentary in Torah Club Volume 2, Shadows of the Messiah, he points out that Yeshua also followed the same model. He delivered his teachings to the 12 apostles, representing all the tribes of Israel. He actually told them in Luke chapter 22, verse 30, that they would sit on thrones to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. And from the 12, it went to the 70, and then to all the other apostles, or shlichim, as we call them in Hebrew, and then to everyone else who was following him. So again, in our desire to, with our other Torah program called Heartbeat of the Torah, our goal is to point out the Messiah in the Torah portion. And here we have Moses, who is the first Redeemer, who is like the second Redeemer, who is Yeshua. And so Yeshua followed in the same patterns that Moses did, and he did this as a sign to the Jewish people so that they would recognize who was the prophet who was like Moses that is spoken of in the Torah. Well, let's turn now to our second parashah for this week, and that's called Massei. And I'd like to turn to Numbers chapter 33, verses 1 and 2. And it says there, "These are the journeys of the children of Israel, who went forth from the land of Egypt according to their legions, under the hand of Moses and Aaron. Moses wrote their goings forth according to their journeys at the bidding of Hashem, and these were their journeys according to their goings forth." The journey from Egypt to Eretz Israel, or the land of Israel, really should have only taken a few weeks, maybe, a month or so. The long list of stopping places, 42 places, and it says in this Torah portion that they stopped, is a reminder, sadly, of the long detour that they took in the wilderness. And of course, this was largely due to their unbelief and their sin and their angering God. We've talked about this before, and I hope you'll remember. If you haven't heard this before, you'll learn something new, that in the Bible, the land of Israel really is a prophetic picture of the world to come and the Messianic age, where the Messiah, the King of Israel, who we believe is Yeshua, the Messiah or Jesus, will be ruling and reigning from Jerusalem for 1,000 years. That's what we call the Messianic age, or the world to come. Therefore, these wanderings in the wilderness represent what's called a galut, exile, the long exile of the people of Israel in this present age, which began, of course, when after Yeshua died and the Romans kicked the Jews out of the land. Though many of us, like myself, and there are many Messianic Jews, many Jewish believers here in the land, some say it's somewhere between 15,000 and 30,000, though we're in the land, and of course there's also 6.4 million Jews here. Though we're physically in the land of Israel, we are still in the galut, the exile. The exile will not end, the sages say, until the Messiah returns, the dead are raised, so the resurrection happens, and he subdues all of his enemies and Israel's enemies and rebuilds the temple, which is pictured in the book of Ezekiel. This is how we know we're still in the galut, the exile, because those things have not yet happened. But we can be sure that they will, just as he came the first time to atone for all the sins of Israel and to bring the Gentiles in to be grafted into Israel, so will he return the second time and fulfill all of those things that are promised in the prophets and in the Torah. There are shadows of that in the Torah as well. So, why are we talking about these 42 wilderness encampments? Why are they in the Torah, and why are they there recorded in such detail? Well, I'd like to read to you what the Midrash Rabbah says. The Midrash Rabbah is a large collection of commentary on the Torah portions. Actually, I believe it also goes not just on the Torah, but there's commentary in some of the other books as well. And so Midrash Rabbah means the great Midrash, the big Midrash, if you will. And I'm going to read something from Midrash Rabbah in the it's the one for Bamidbar, Sefer Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, and it's basically in chapter 23 and verse 3. And what it says on the words as commentary, these are the journeys of the children of Israel, it says this, and I think you should listen to this because it's really very wonderful, and it gives us a clearer picture of who our Father in heaven is. The matter may be explained by way of an analogy. It is comparable to a king whose son is sick, or whose son was sick. The king took his son to a place to heal him. When they returned, his father started to recount all their journeys, saying, "Here we slept, here we felt cold, here you had a headache." Similarly, the Holy One, blessed be He, said to Moses, "Recount for them all the places where they angered me." Therefore it states, these are the journeys of the children of Israel. I want to read a note also on this, this part that I just read, and it says, the king in the parable represents God. The sick son represents Israel, who was spiritually sick in the wilderness from having been in captivity in Egypt. They basically forgot who they were, frequently angering God because of their disobedience. Just as the king recounted their travels to his son after his son recovered, so too did God have Moses recount Israel's travels at the end of their 40 years in the wilderness, when Israel finally repented and was spiritually healed. I lost my place just a moment here. So it's interesting because the number 42 does appear elsewhere in the scriptures. And I want to turn, if you want to do this, I'm not going to read it all, but look at Matthew 1. And I'm talking about the genealogy of Yeshua. Verses 1 to 16 give the names of the generations, the people that were before Yeshua. And then in Matthew 1 verse 17 it says, so all the generations from Adam to David were 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah 14 generations. 14 times 3 is 42 generations in all. I want to read something from, it's way over here, sorry. I apologize for seeing my full body there. I want to read on page, this is Shadows of the Messiah. I've read from this before, First Fruits of Zion's Torah Club Volume 2. And I'm going to read on page, hang on here, I just lost my place, 896. Just a moment, I'm almost there. Okay. I want to make sure I'm reading the right thing. Okay, yes, so about these 42 generations. I also noted the 42 generations listed in the genealogy from Abraham to Yeshua. If Matthew had included all the names instead of excluding a few, the number would have been greatly different. But there is a special significance to the number 42. The journey of Israel from Egypt to the Promised Land led through 42 stops and resting places, according to Numbers 33. At the beginning of these 42 stops was Moshe, who led them out of Egypt. And at the end of the 42 stops was Joshua, who took them into the Promised Land. At the beginning of the 42 generations was Abraham, who received the promise of the blessed seed. Of course, that's referring to the Messiah. At the end of the 42 generations stands a greater Yehoshua, in whom all the promises culminate and are fulfilled. Yehoshua, of course, is the full Hebrew name of the Aramaic shortened version, Yeshua. And then it says, Abraham took Israel out of the city of Haran, which means wrath, and Yehoshua took them in to God's Sabbath rest. Again, a picture of the Messianic age and the world to come. So I wanted to say that this all goes very well. Oh, let me point out one more place where 42 occurs, and it's in the Sefer Hitgalut, or the Book of Revelations. And you want to turn when you can. You don't have to do it now, but in Revelation 11:2, it's talking about the court of the temple being given over to the Gentiles for 42 months. And also in Revelation 13, verse 3 through 5, where the beast is given 42 months to be in power in the land of Israel and to speak all kinds of blasphemies against the God of Israel. Well, this all goes very well with the idea that we are still in the long exile, waiting for the Geulah, or the final redemption. Some of the Chazal, or Jewish sages, say that another way to understand the word Massei is that they are stages. What does that mean? The journey from Egypt to Sinai, and then from Sinai to the Promised Land, was a process of readying the children of Israel to be the people of God, to go through stages so that they would learn to follow his teachings and instructions, which of course is the Torah. It's a process to become a righteous person. We all know that. We go through stages. Thinking back to the king and his sick son, we have to go through a journey of becoming holy and worthy for the Geulah, which also is a process. We have to go through these stages, a process, until we are fit and ready and worthy to enter the world to come. In addition to that, the journey of Israel is a journey to recognize the Messiah, Yeshua, as he truly is. Even in Christianity, Yeshua has been hidden in Egyptian clothing. Most think that Jesus came to abandon Judaism and begin a new religion. This is absolutely not what the scriptures teach. And so the teachings, even in the Brit Hadashah, are veiled somewhat, interpreted today in a way they were never meant to be. Yeshua's true essence is hidden, even from some believers. So the clothes and the Egyptian garb have to come off so that all of Yeshua's brothers, Jew and Gentile, will recognize him. This is called, in Hasidic thinking, breaking open the klippah. A klippah in Judaism is like a shell that protects what's inside. It's the material existence of a person. It's what he appears to be on the outside. Yeshua is actually presently encased in a shell that needs to be removed or broken so that his essence and who he truly is will be clear to all. The stages of our journey in the long exile is designed also to change us from the inside out, and is designed to help us to see who Yeshua really is. It may interest you to know that the sages say that we also have a klippah, but that's another teaching for another time. As we do this, as we remove the klippah, as we break open the klippah so that everyone can see Yeshua as he truly is, the Jewish people will begin to recognize him as their Messiah. And one day they will cry out, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, and he will finally, at long last, return to them and return to all of us who are engrafted into the rich olive tree of Israel. The long galut will turn into the Geulah, the redemption. And I want to point something out to you, that in Hebrew, the word exile is golah, and it's spelled Gimel Vav Lamed He. The word for redemption is Geulah, spelled Gimel Aleph Vav Lamed He. There's only one letter difference between the two words, and it's the letter Aleph, of course, representing our great champion, the God of Israel, our Father in heaven. It is his decision when this all will happen. I believe Yeshua has been ready and waiting to come for a long time, like a bridegroom to his bride. But sadly, his bride, we, are the ones who are not ready. The Geulah does partly depend upon us and upon our conduct. Well, that's all we have time for today in A Taste of Torah. It's already a little bit longer than what I planned. And I just want to invite you to check out our other Tastes of Torah. We have a few of them now. And then also we invite you to take a look at our other videos called Heartbeat of the Torah, where we do a fuller commentary, I should say, analysis on the Torah portion. Well, I want to remind you that if these programs are blessing you and teaching you, that you go to our website, www.blessisraelnetwork, and there you can click on the Donate tab and make a tax-deductible donation for our ministry. And I want to say Shabbat Shalom Lekulam, Shabbat Shalom to everyone, and may this Sabbath be filled with the joy and peace of our Messiah. Litraot from Israel.